Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, a couple of videos for us to watch. First of all, let's do the woke bishop in Washington who didn't get the memo. This is hilarious. This was yesterday morning. It was the traditional inaugural prayer service at the Washington National Cathedral, presided over by Episcopal Bishop of Washington, Mariann Budde. Listen to this and look at the faces on Donald Trump and his entourage as she delivers this lecture, this woke lecture. It's hilarious. Watch this.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
Yeah, and she went on to talk about illegal migrants, saying they're not criminals. She went on about them. They're the people who do our gardens and fix our cars. It was very, very sort of patronising. She said they're not criminals. Well, actually, they are. They're illegal migrants. The clue is in illegal. But she lectured them for about 5 minutes. And afterwards, Donald Trump, he tweeted or put it on his truth thing saying, what was it? The so-called bishop who spoke at the national prayer service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. I agree with him. It was very inappropriate to lecture them. And what is she talking about? There are trans kids who want to kill themselves or something, or fear for their life. What nonsense is she trolling out there?
Completely ridiculous. Doesn't it remind you of the late and not very lamented Archbishop of Canterbury? It's the kind of thing that he would do. A special mention there for Tiffany Trump, that's her with the wavy blonde hair sitting
with the
just
very big hair, yeah.
behind Melania, looking utterly bewildered by these comments. And a special mention for J.D. Vance, who at the trans children thing looks at his wife and basically sort of does a metaphoric eye roll. Completely inappropriate, and I thought Trump's response was hilarious. And, you know, as I was saying on one of our earlier shows today, the best thing we can do for so-called trans children is to stop the nonsense in schools that tells them that they could be confused about whether they're a boy or a girl, and stick with what Trump says, which is that there's just two biological sexes, male and female. That's it, folks.
Under American law now, thank the Lord for that. And I don't know what she's talking about, trans kids fearing for their lives. You know, look, we care about the welfare of everyone. Of course we want trans kids, and well, if there are trans kids, but lesbians, the LGBT community, we want them to be happy, we want them to feel safe. This isn't about having a go at them, but it is this woke virtue signalling claptrap. That wasn't about lesbian and trans kids and migrants. That was about her. Aren't I a wonderful person? I care about migrants. I care about trans kids. But you Republican right-wing monster, you don't care. It's that nonsense, that halo polishing nonsense that Trump magnificently chucked into the rubbish bin the day before.
Yeah, I mean, she just basically embarrassed herself, didn't she?
Yeah.
And he just sat there and tolerated it. Look at his face, thinking to himself, yeah, love, but I'm the president now. And you can just put all that in the bin.
Exactly right. And he was asked as he returned to the White House before he got his pen out and started posting what he thought. A reporter shouted at him, "What did you think of the service, Mr. President?" He goes, "What did you think?" He said, "Wasn't too exciting, was it?" Thank you, Bishop Budde, but no thanks. Let's move on to our next amusing American video, and this is the one that you flagged up. I'm glad you did, Isabel. This is the Louisiana governor called John Kennedy. I don't believe he's part of the Kennedy clan, but he's certainly straight talking. He took one look at Keir Starmer's bizarre bid to offload the strategic Chagos Islands to China's friend Mauritius. And like the rest of us went, hey, what's this about? And this was his reaction.
Terry Rundell need to pick up the phone and call Prime Minister Starmer in the United Kingdom and say to the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, stop dipping into your ketamine stash. Put down the Bong. We need this military base to combat China. Don't do it. And if the President will do that and the Secretary of State will do that, I believe Mr. Starmer, who tried to ram this through the week before President Biden took office but was stopped, I believe that he will give in.
I believe he's right. I mean, that notwithstanding, that was fantastic. I love that guy. I'm going to get him on my show.
I have a feeling, I don't know this, by the way, but it feels to me as maybe that guy had a couple of drinks with Mr. Farage at some point when Mr. Farage was over in the United States in the last few days. It wasn't that amazing. It was so funny, just the way they talk sometimes over there. And the only thing is about this little idea that maybe our Prime Minister, the only explanation for the uselessness and idiocy of our Prime Minister is that he's actually absolutely off his head on drugs. Unfortunately.
I want to stress we're in no way suggesting that our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is off his head on ketamine and is smoking a bong. That would be an outrageous suggestion, but it was an outrageous it was an outrageous suggestion made hilariously by Senator John Kennedy. And a lot of us, as you quite rightly suggest, Isabel, were going, well, that could explain quite a lot.
Except he's just too boring. Obviously, we don't condone drug taking. I would never do such.
No, of course not, no.
But can you really imagine Keir? I'm hoping tomorrow that the papers will be full of cartoons of Keir Starmer with a massive joint. Just such a stretch of the imagination, isn't it?
It would serve him right. I mean, let's talk briefly about the Chagos Islands, because in a rare, wise move, if it was indeed a wise move, I'm not quite sure of the details, but it did seem to me that towards the end of last week, there were stories around that stupidly Starmer and his left-wing sidekick, the hopeless Attorney General, the lefty Attorney General Richard Hermer, Lord Hermer, no political experience whatsoever, and it shows, that they were trying to rush through the Chagos deals before Trump came into office. But at the last moment we heard that wisely, if it is true, they decided to wait until Donald took the helm in Washington and let him make a decision about whether or not Britain and indeed America should cede this territory, this very strategic territory in the Pacific Ocean to is it in the Pacific Ocean or is it the Indian Ocean, in the South Seas, to Mauritius, to China's friend Mauritius. So if Donald has been given the right of veto, I think he will veto it, won't he?
I'm pretty sure he will do. I think and if he does, by the way, that is, I'm going to say, like 99% down to the campaigning of reform in general and Nigel Farage in particular. I know how hard Mr. Farage has worked to get this on the radar of the incoming Trump administration. And you can imagine how difficult that was when they were, preparing for power, so many other things on the agenda. And, here's this small British issue about this base. And of course, it does affect the Americans because of their huge military base that we leased to them, Diego Garcia. Yeah. So I know that Nigel worked very, very hard to get the people around Trump worked up about this. And if he manages to get Trump to dismantle this deal, that is on him. He will have saved that bit of our strategic assets, really.
Everybody confused about why Britain has been so desperate to offload this very strategic territory in the South Seas, from which both America and Britain monitor the Middle East, China, the Far East. It is very vital to us. For some reason, Britain has decided we've got to give this back to Mauritius. And the Mauritians go, what do you mean you want to give it back to us? We've never had it. It's 1,400 miles away from the Chagos Islands. They've never had sovereign control of it. So we go, well, all right, and what about if we give you £800,000 a year for 99 years, 9 billion quid? Mauritians, that sounds interesting. So that seems to be where the deal is at. And if you're wondering, like everyone else, why? Why are we doing this? You need to look no further than Lord Richard Hermer, who is a dyed-in-the-wool sixth form socialist hippie, just like Starmer. This is what he says. He said, one can't, it's colonialism. It's about anti-imperialism. You know, Britain shouldn't have these territories abroad. We're not an empire anymore. Right, he said, one can't begin to understand the British colonial project without appreciation for how racism impacted almost every element of it. There you have it. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. How old are these people? Like 17 or something?
I mean, hang on a minute. Is this guy so ignorant that he doesn't realise that the greatest imperialists of our day are actually the Chinese? They're just a little bit more subtle about it, but not that subtle about it. They are effectively colonising large swathes of the world with a particular focus on Africa, but also on parts of the Caribbean. And what they do is they build roads and railways and airports there. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like basically taking over a country. They import Chinese populations to those places. They make them vassal states. So what are we doing with this Chagos deal? We're potentially handing back this territory to allies of the Chinese. That's just swapping a guilt for old colonialism to a new colonizer.
Yeah, there is no reason for us to do this whatsoever.
Zero.
Unless you take into account the political opinions of a bunch of superannuated sixth form student socialists like Richard Hermer, who thinks that we're all racist imperialists. And of course Keir Starmer goes along. By the way, he got this job as Attorney General, never been in politics before. Funny enough, he gave a £5,000 donation to the Labour Party before the election, was elevated to the House of Lords so he could become Attorney General. What is he even doing there? He has no idea what he's doing.
I'd never heard of him, honestly. I was like, who? And that's a reflection of our politics, isn't it? That you can just do this. It's all been tremendously shabby. It's reflected so badly on us. It's made this country, the United Kingdom, look like it is a country of diminishing ambition, that we are shrinking, turning in on ourselves, all those things that they said, those anti-Brexiteers, they said of us, those who promoted Brexit, oh, don't be Little England. Well, that's just what we've become, are becoming, Little England that isn't allowed to have any strategic outposts. I know of several countries that would actually offer us new strategic outposts, new naval bases as we speak. Can you imagine our leaders ever engaging in that?
No, I can't. We're going to talk about net zero next. Thank you very much to Isabel Oakeshott. Back in a minute.